electronics to stop buzzing at me here. So, jeez.
All right. Hey everybody, welcome to another Gigs. This month we will be talking about networking, and that is social networking, not a networking as in programming networking, as some people have asked. But
or if you want me to talk about that, I'm totally comfortable with that too. So,
once again, we have Rob Coble joining us. He is one of the king of networks and networking. He taught me most of what I know about networking. I wouldn't say everything, but quite a few tips and tricks. So this month's going to be a little bit different. Rob and I are going to kind of start out by just sharing our kind of tips and tricks that we've learned, our own philosophies on networking, and then we'll get into Q&A. So it'll be a little bit different. But thank you all for joining us once again. And for those of you who aren't watching live, enjoy our sultry tones in the back of whatever you are doing when you watch again. So I guess kind of I'll start with my basic philosophy of what networking is. Networking is really interesting because people talk about it a lot as this kind of necessary thing to get into the industry, necessary thing to widen yourself in the industry, as a tool, as all these tips and tricks. People sell books on it, all these different things. But, really it's just making friends. Everything else that you have to do is, really just there for making friends. Oh, Rob told me to say I'm Grant, by the way, Grant Schonkweiler. If you haven't tuned in before, I run gigs. I'm also a producer at Epic Games. There you go. That is part of networking right there, saying who you are and what you do. Very important. But realistically, yeah, it's about making friends, and being genuinely interested in people is really important. We'll talk a bit here about how to do networking when you're an introvert. Not everybody is like me, where you're an extreme extrovert, and being around people is what gets you excited every day. So we'll talk a bit about that as well. But my core philosophy is just networking is making friends, investing in them, caring about their lives, and then maybe one day it pays off. For me, most of my networking has paid off for other people. I've helped them achieve their dreams and get to where they want to be. But networking has in fact got me 2 of my jobs, of my 3 industry jobs, and I guess really all 3 of them because Rob and I met and networked that way. So, Rob, why don't you talk a little bit about your kind of philosophy of networking and your kind of intro spiel?
Sure. So I can hear myself echoing back there. Anyway, I hope that doesn't bother you too much. But so yeah, I'm Rob Coble, and I'm had spent up until about 8 months ago the last almost 11 years of my life working with game developers at Full Sail University. I'm now a technical recruiter for Every Game Studios, or Every Holdings, which is a casino game company. We're based out of Las Vegas, but our main game studio's in Austin, Texas. Pardon me a little bit. I have a cold, so I'm a little raspy, but when I started working as a career development advisor, there was something that I felt I wanted to base my strategies on when I was working with other people, and that was primarily to talk to them about networking, because I have yet to have a job in my life that has come from answering an ad. And I've been working now since I was 14 years old. I'm 53 right now, so you're a dev, you do the math. But even the first job that I had when I was 14 years old was washing dishes at a Chinese restaurant. And I got that job because a friend of mine worked there. So everything that I've done in my career, 25 years in the music industry, where they don't post jobs online. It's all about who you know. It's all about getting yourself out there and being available and getting involved and showing up and letting people know that you're passionate about these things. And then even at Full Sail, but I got that job basically by attending one of their behind the scenes open house things that they did every year or every month, and met my would-be boss at that event, and then networked with her for 9 months before I even had the opportunity to come in and talk to her about a serious position. I could tell you hundreds of stories of how people have met people, be it online or at a conference or at a bar or standing in line at a grocery store, and basically just being nice to other people and everything. And that's what, started the ball rolling into into employment. So I'm eager to take any questions that you guys have, and please feel free, if you would, to identify yourselves in the chat so I know who we're talking to and everything and who all's out there.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I was thinking about, while you were talking there, about all the jobs I've had through networking. I remember when you and I first met, we talked about making friends and kind of what you can do through that. And when the Megatouch guy started to come down, you encouraged me to just use that as an opportunity to learn. And originally I interviewed with them as an opportunity to learn how to interview, but over time I developed a relationship with them, and then that's how I got my first gig. And my second gig was from meeting the HR director of a company that I interviewed at, and then continually being friends with her for years. Rob and I would hang out with her at GDC every year. And then she ended up, hiring me into my next job. And then this job that I have was through a mutual friend meeting somebody who then introduced me to the people to get this job. So it really is, it's all about networking and stuff. But I've also had.
But let me add something there though. It's like I love like how you were telling that part of the story, because we were hanging out with Carrie and other people like that at GDC and everything. And it wasn't, at that point, it wasn't even for the sake of networking. It was like we had all become friends, and we were all really passionate and excited about the industry that we were a part of. So it wasn't like, oh God, I got to go out and network. I got to go out and be visible. It was like, no, I'm a part of something. I'm in this, man. I'm going to go out and talk to other people about it. So it was fun. It was never like a chore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think when my first GDC, I felt like networking was a numbers game. And I definitely put myself out there a lot more, was not having real meaningful conversations with people. And I met a lot of people, and that was good, and that has helped me to this day. But the people that I am closest with are the people that I developed friendships with there. I'll never forget one of the guys that I'm really close with now. Him and I sat like on a couch and talked about like theology and philosophy at a bar for like an hour and a half. It had nothing to do with games, right? But we just had this conversation. We had this human connection, and we really impacted each other. So
that's what it's about, man, is making that connection. It doesn't have to be related to the topic at hand. I mean, just because you're at GDC doesn't mean you have to talk to somebody about games nonstop. It's just kind of, putting yourself out there and opening up and showing people that you're a real person.
Yeah. I think a good tip though is, you are at GDC, you are talking to people who are passionate about games. So it's always an easy place to start. 99% chance when you meet somebody at GDC or any conference or IGDA meeting, they're there because they love games and they want to talk about games. So a simple opening question after you ask them what they do or something is like, hey, what are you playing right now? Like, what games do you love? Things like that. Those are always like my go-tos, is like, what are you working on? Oh, you can't talk about it? What do you do? Okay. What's your favorite game of all time? Like, what games are you playing right now? Things like that. Always my kind of go-to questions.
People like, that's usually step number one for people that are afraid to open up the conversation. Remember that if you get people talking about themselves, a lot of times it's easy for them to talk. Not everybody's going to share the same passions or the same interests that you have. Like, for instance, I'm a huge sports fan. So a lot of times I go to these conferences for gaming and I'm not running into a lot of other baseball fans or something like that. So, you know, I throw out something baseball related and you just, you know, crickets. So you want to kind of be ready to adapt to the conversations at hand. So a lot of times if you can get people talking about themselves, their companies, what they do on a regular basis, all of that kind of stuff, man, the conversations will take care of themselves. You know, it's like they're going to be contributing as much as you are. So you don't, I think a lot of people are afraid. They feel like they're going to have to control or run the conversation, and that's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you also realize when a conversation's over, right? Like there is a point, especially at a conference, where you're just like, okay, I have something else I have to go do. And you have to be able to read that situation, because I know a lot of times I'll be talking to somebody and I'll be like, man, I really want to get to know you. Here's my information. Let's keep talking. But at the same time, I have to find an exit to the conversation. And that's a horrible thing to say. But it's something on the opposite side that you have to be cognizant of, is like, is this person trying to end the conversation with me? Or like, are we just out of things to talk about? It's good to just kind of, you know when the conversation is coming to an end. And that's when you insert with, hey, you know, it was great getting to talk to you. It's great getting to know you. I'd love to get to know you some more. You know, is it cool if we trade business cards? Or, you know, sometimes I'm just a little more upfront. I'm like, hey, this was awesome. Here's my business card. If you want to keep in touch, keep in touch. So that's kind of the good handoff there.
Yeah. And I'm kind of that way too, you know. I'll offer business cards to people. I get asked about that all the time. Is it okay to ask somebody for a card? I mean, you know, you can usually get a pretty good idea of, how the conversation's going, if you're striking out or whatnot. And the thing is, not everybody's going to be willing to sit and talk with you, no matter how cool you are, no matter what you have to offer. So it is a numbers game, man. You just move on and you get to the next person. I think the other thing about asking questions of people, and something that I like to talk about all the time, and this is something that, if you read any books on sales, you're going to hear a lot of the same things. And ultimately what you're doing when you're networking is you're trying to sell yourself. And you're just trying to sell yourself as a person who's a decent person, somebody who, is interesting and has something to say and whatnot. You have to qualify the person that you're talking to. Just like if a guy, a sales rep, if you were to walk into Best Buy and you wanted to buy a computer, that sales rep needs to qualify you. In other words, he needs to find out, what do you use your computer for? What's important to you in using a computer? Is battery life a main selling point? Is, how much memory is on that computer more important than battery life to you? What exactly do you use it for? And the more that they can find out about you, the more they can tailor their response and their recommendations towards you. Not every computer is going to be the ideal computer for everybody. I like to tease people all the time about, using Crapple phones instead of Android, but that's just my personal preference. Apple's got a lot of great things that they do, and some people, it meets with their needs a lot better. Therefore, it is the better phone. So, it's kind of like the more that you qualify and find out what that person's all about, the easier it is to talk to them and figure out what to talk about too.
Yeah, totally true. Let's we got a couple questions here. JDB asked a bunch earlier on Facebook. We'll kind of go through his throughout the talk. We'll start with his first one. Grant, where will you and Rob be partying during GDC?
That's real easy for me. If you find Shank, I'll be the little puppy dog kind of walking behind him there, To be honest with you, there are so many great parties and so many things that are going on. I'm not a big party guy. For me, it's a lot of great networking is done. So I don't want anybody to hear what I'm about to say and think like they don't need to go to parties. No, you should go to the parties and meet with people and shake hands, mind your P's and Q's, pints and quarts in this instance, and make sure that you don't over imbibe, because every time you're talking to somebody, that's an interview type situation. But that's a lot of, there's a lot of people there that let their hair down. And it's just easier to kind of start a rapport with them and exchange cards and everything. Me, I'm not a big party guy. I would rather hook up with a couple of good friends that I can sit down and have dinner with and really have some quality discussion where we're not screaming and yelling over some DJ that's, cranking some tunes at ear-bleeding decibel levels. And that's just me. I usually try and show up at the parties so I can say hi to people that I know that I want to run into, because I know that's probably the only opportunity I'm going to have. But then I kind of go out and do my own thing. But I guess my recommendation would be, if you find a party that, a company that you're really interested in and you can get into their party, that's a great place to network and meet a lot of the people that will probably have some sort of influence over whether or not you can get an interview with that company.
Yeah, I have a lot of party advice. So I've kind of transitioned over the years to be more like Rob, where to me now the real value I get out of GDC is strengthening the relationships I have. I have a lot of people that I know, and it's more important for me to learn about how their lives are going and invest time in them than it is to meet a bunch of new people. I still meet a bunch of new people, and they're great people, amazing people. They've helped me find jobs. I've helped them find jobs, but for me, over the years, it's transitioned more to like going to hotel suite parties, going to dinner with people, just smaller groups, because like you said, the noise thing is out of control. So what I often tell people is, first off, find a place, a party that you really want to go to for like a company that you're interested in. Secondly, find the parties that are not going to have DJs. The IGDA party is always great because they don't have music other than a karaoke room, which is where you'll probably find me. And because of that, you can actually have conversations with people. Notch used to throw parties, White Wolf used to throw parties that were so loud that I'd never met anybody at those. The IGDA threw one year like that, and we danced and had a great time with the 6 of us that came, but I didn't meet a single person while I was there. So, try and find the quality parties. Sometimes I will meet people on the show floor and I'll just follow them to a party. Know that a lot of parties are pretty exclusive. It's worth trying to get in by having somebody help you. But if someone says, I can't get you in, just end there, right? Like if you ask me, Grant, can you get me into this party? And I say no, then it's over. Don't follow me. Don't do whatever, because I've had this happen, and I've had pretty negative relationships form with people where I'm like, hey, I'm going to this thing. Sorry, you can't come. And they're like, well, I'll just try and get in. And I'm like, no, if you try and get in, it's going to reflect poorly on me. So there are some really exclusive parties. There's parties now that you have to pay to have tickets. You can RSVP beforehand, plenty of things like that. But yeah, they are a great place to network. Like Rob said, don't over imbibe, don't go crazy. Really just remember why you're there. You're there to meet people, form relationships, and whatever. If you're at a place that is a recruitment party, have your cards. Don't worry about resumes and stuff. They'll talk to you about whatever they need you to bring to the party. But the recruitment party, they're going to want you to talk to specific people. If you're at a company's party and it's not a recruitment party, don't talk to people about getting you a job. Just meet people. That's all that's important. Meet people, get their contact information. Like Rob said, spend a couple months fostering a relationship and then ask them, unless it comes up naturally in conversation. So
I like what you said about the following, don't follow people around and whatnot, because I've had that happen too. And it's very awkward for everybody. And being a pest, it doesn't look good on you. Okay. Quite frankly, it doesn't look good on you. You're just being more of a pain in the ass, and somebody's thinking like, wow, this guy doesn't follow directions very well. So, bird dogging somebody around in hopes of, meeting somebody that you want to meet or getting into a party or something like that. It's just not good. Don't do it.
Sorry, I just realized my mic was muted. I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. JDB asked me a question. If I only have an expo pass, is there a way in to get it to your talks? Can you sneak me in? No, you would have to try and find someone, and this is unsanctioned. This is against the rules. Maybe find someone who has a badge, and maybe they'll let you borrow it. I don't have one, so I can't get you in. I'm sorry. I'm flattered that you would ask, though. Sorry. Roman Sailor asks, morals aside, is it ever right to not hand over a business card, even if one is given to you? What could those hypothetical situations be? Oh, that's a very hypothetical question.
Why wouldn't, so like, in other words, what they're asking is, I don't want to give my business card to this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever, been in that situation where I wouldn't want to give somebody, if somebody's like a, just a total tool and came up to me unannounced and like, just walked up and said, give me your business card or something like that, I'd probably, oh, I'm out, or I don't know, I'd give them one. Usually they're not going to use it anyway, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I've never, that's an interesting question. I've never really been in a situation where, that would happen.
Yeah, I think the only situation I could see is like if that person were coming off with vibes that were not professional, so to speak. If they were trying to get your number more than they were trying to get your professional credentials, like I have my personal phone number on my business card, then maybe I would second guess it. But like Rob said, more than likely that person isn't going to use it. I have had people just be like, hey, can I get your business card? I'm like, I don't know who you are, but I'll give it to them anyways. Maybe we'll form a relationship later. But the only one I can really think of is if it's like, if it's more they want to get your digits than they want to, like actually network with you. Seth Rolfe asked, you guys always talk about GDC, but as a current student, I don't think I'll be able to go anytime soon. I will be going to PAX East this year. Is it the same networking tips apply? Yeah. I've been to PAX East a few times. The only thing is you're less likely to meet other developers there. You're more likely to just meet fans, but at the same time, you may meet some devs. When I went, the first year they had it, all of the devs kind of just hung out by ourselves. Like information spread around the floor of where the devs would go, and we didn't go to the parties where the rest of the fans went. I went to a few of those parties. They were fun, but it was more just like, people there who love games, which is cool, but it's less networking. It's more just meeting people, but networking tips apply across all fields of any event that you go to.
Dude, I'm so sorry. I was typing away there and I kind of heard the question, but I kind of
No, it's fine. I answered it. Don't worry. Nick Pelota asks, how do you guys feel about having QR codes that take you to an online portfolio or business card? Would you recommend them, or have you heard negative things about them? I've gotten cards with them on it. I've never used it. I'll just type your website in. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I would say make sure that both of them are on. Nothing wrong with having a QR code as long as it doesn't. You still talking?
No, go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm watching two different things, guys. I'm really messed up here, man. I see Sean.
Don't watch the video. Don't watch the actual live stream video.
It's delayed. Okay, I'm gonna cut this so I can only see the chat from Son. Okay, so make sure that the link is on there as well, because yeah, a lot of people are just gonna type it in and not scan the QR code. I don't use the QR code either, so I don't think it's really advantageous. I would rather just see you make a nice professionally designed card.
Yeah, for sure. Rodney, Hi, Rodney. Rodney asked, "What is your favorite icebreaker? Any advice on that first impression?" My icebreaker is the same as my pickup line with women. Hi, I'm Grant. Who are you?
Yeah,
that's
usually how I like to answer that question too. Is first off, I have to say this because I haven't seen Rodney in a long time. I love you, man. Okay.
Oh, I love him too. I love you too, Rodney.
Yes, mine's bigger. Okay. Anyway, yeah, it's like, I usually just introduce myself. It really depends on the situation. I think part of being good at networking is being able to think on your feet a little bit, not be too invasive, not be too standoffish. You want to kind of be there somewhere right in the middle. If I overhear somebody talking about a topic that I know something about, I'm not afraid to chime in if the opportunity presents itself. I don't want to just butt in. If somebody's wearing a t-shirt that is a band that I really like or something like that, I'm certainly not afraid to, make a comment or something like that, So, it really depends on the situation. A lot of times it's just kind of small talk, how's the conference so far? But again, as soon as possible, I'll try to get something in there to ask them about themselves or something that, you don't want to just do a question that's not open-ended, with a yes or no. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite stories, the guy that walked up to a booth at SIGGRAPH one year, and the booth had all this signage, and they were obviously there looking to hire artists and everything. And this kid was just a mess. And he walked up to the booth, and the first thing he did when the guy looked up at him was just ask him, "Are you guys hiring artists?" And the guy, kind of just looked and pointed to the sign that said, "We are on the hunt for 3D modelers, 2D artists, riggers," the whole gambit was listed on there. And, so the answer was yes. And that's all he said. He just goes, "Yes." So the kid gave him his demo reel and walked away. So there was like no interaction, no introduction or anything there. So, kind of look around, do a little homework before you get there, monitor the situation. A lot of times there's lines waiting to get up to talk to somebody, so you can kind of hear the conversations ahead and get a lot of the information so that you can go into the things that are most important to you.
Yeah, I think what you said, there's a couple really key things there, like, being aware of a conversation. If you know the person, like maybe you saw the person give a talk or they're a famous industry person, it's worth being like, "Hey, I saw your talk," or, "Hey, you did this thing that I really love." I've told this story a bunch of times all over the place about my first GDC, my first experience really of the first day of GDC. The reason I make games is because of a game called Deus Ex. Warren Spector is one of my heroes, and I went specifically to a panel that I knew he was going to be on the panel after, and I was like, I'm just going to sit in the back and maybe I can catch him when he walks in. So he walks in, I sit down, and he sits down right next to me, and I'm like, oh snaps, right? So I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the whole reason I'm here. And I turn to him and I say, "Hi, I'm Grant Schonkweiler. I'm a college student. I'm learning how to program games, and I just wanted to say thank you for Deus Ex. It's the reason why I want to be in this industry." And we had a conversation about 10 minutes long. I asked him for his business card, and we still talk on a regular basis to this day. Well, not as regular, but we talked pretty regularly for a while, and now we see each other at GDC every year. We've gotten to be friends. So
can I add something to that?
Sure.
And I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I think this is important. And then Grant introduced me to Warren, who has since flown me out to UT to lecture his students for the last 2 years. So the networking thing goes round and round. It's not, it's not like, too many people feel like they have to really get I'll hear stories of people like, oh, well, I got to talk to the president of this company, or I got to talk to this, to the senior studio director at this company or whatnot. And that's great if you get those opportunities. But those people are rarely involved in the day-to-day process of recruiting and bringing people in. Sure, they have a lot of influence, but you never know. You're there to meet anybody and everybody and to be friendly. And you want to treat the lowest, QA person, not to slam QA. I don't want to see a bunch of crap here because I'm not doing that, but that tends to be more of an entry level. So, the lowest person on the totem pole, you want to treat as well as the nicest person, because you never know the connections that those people have. And plus, you should be a nice person.
What he's saying is you should just find a Grant Schonkweiler.
Yeah, Keon Grant.
But yeah, I think there are a lot of different subtle ways you can find to enter conversations. Another random networking tip I have, which is, people have asked in the questions like, what are some tips? So I'm wearing a rugby jersey right now because it's my shtick. Sometimes you can find a shtick that makes you stick out. I learned this from Darius Kazemi, who used to write a networking blog, really where I got a lot of my tips any tip that I have that I didn't get from Rob, I got from Darius. And for, I think, 9 years, Darius wore orange shirts only wore orange shirts. And it made him really obvious to people. His business card was just a business card with an email address on the back, and on the front, it was orange and it said Darius, right? And he just kind of created his own brand. For me, I was a poor college student and I went to a charity poker tournament. I really put myself out there. I spent $200 to play poker at GDC because I like poker, and I know that when you play poker, you have great conversations with people. I had no idea who was going to be there, but I assumed it's charity, so there will be good people there. I met a bunch of people there that were high-level executives, but I also made really good friends there. And that I'm still friends with. But I needed something nicer to wear, and all I had was like a rugby jersey that had a collar, so I wore that. The next day, multiple people that I played poker against were like, hey, it's the rugby jersey guy. And I was like, I guess that's my shtick now, and now I only wear rugby jerseys. So, there's easy ways to kind of to make yourself memorable. Now, I'm not saying like tattoo your name across your forehead or something really weird, but there are ways to kind of make yourself memorable.
Yeah, and not by being so totally outlandish because then everybody's going to remember you, but they're going to remember you as a dork, so you don't want to be the guy that's just totally off the wall or anything.
Yeah.
As far as like apparel and stuff like that goes, it's a very casual conference, any conference. And somebody mentioned in the questions earlier about, do the same tips apply at PAX as they would at GDC? Absolutely. I tend to dress up more so than the typical gamer guy, so, but if you want to wear a t-shirt and jeans, there's nothing wrong with that. At the same time, just make sure that you're comfortable, you're clean, you're presentable. People usually tend to find me a lot easier because I usually have a jacket on, and I do that for various reasons, mostly because I like the extra pockets. But, to each his own, but just, be presentable and be clean, be prepared. Your demeanor is what's most important,
Yeah, so JD had a few other questions. So we've talked about good ways of networking. What are some bad ways to network? I have a really good story. A bad way to network is to go to GDC, go to the W bar, get real drunk, and start putting your business cards in people's pockets.
Yeah, that's just asinine. You're not going to make any friends that way, and people are just going to be like, who is this guy?
Yeah. And then the next day, what's going to happen is everybody's going to be like, did you get a business card from this guy? What a douche, right?
Yeah.
Like it was unwelcome. There was no conversation. It was just a business card going in, and the person was really drunk. to the point of insulting. So bad networking is doing something like that, hitting on someone instead of just being professional, hitting on them. I've seen that work both ways. Being rude to the point of like a conversation is happening and you interrupt to butt in instead of finding like a casual in. You know, if there's like a group of 3 people talking and they're talking about something that interests you, it's not weird to just kind of sidle up and be there as part of the conversation. And then when a time comes to join in, but if there's a conversation happening between the 3 people and you just interrupt and are like, well, I think you're wrong because of this, right? And they're like, who are you? We don't know you. So that's another kind of wrong way. I think in general, not being a nice person, being rude is really the most like bad way to network, is just being a rude person.
Or you know, nobody ever wakes up, you know, on Friday morning and starts going through their business cards and comes across somebody that they don't remember and goes, oh, I better call this guy back. You know, it's like, you know, having a card is really important and everything. For one reason, it shows that you're prepared. But the thing that I always like to say is carrying a card for me is more so I can get the other person's card. That way I'm not going to wait around for them to follow up, because they probably won't. And I want to be the one to be able to initiate it. And once I initiate that follow-up, if they then choose to ignore it and whatnot, okay, I can get the message pretty quick. Maybe I can start following them on Twitter or even connect with them on LinkedIn or something. But I want to have something to be able to remind them of the conversation that we had. And, you know, being drunk and obnoxious and overly opinionated is only going to get you, it's only going to get, you know, people to hate you. I mean, it's okay to have opinions as long as you're not overly opinionated. And, you know, there's 2 things that you have to do. You have to be able to contribute and you have to be able to learn in equal parts in any job, but especially in this industry. So your ability to show them that you can be convinced otherwise, that you're willing to listen to the other side of a story and learn from it, is really important. So don't go in there with opinions. Don't go in there with what's the word I'm looking for? I'll give you an example. I remember our friend Josh Hamrick, who worked at Bungie at the time, had just released Halo. And I can't remember which Halo it was. This was probably about 5 years back. And he came back out to school, Halo 3, yeah. And he came back out to school, and one of the first things that somebody said to him when they were introduced to him was, well, I don't like first-person shooters. And that was how the conversation started. And it was kind of like, why do you even say that? You know, it's like, you know, this guy just spent, you know, 3 years of his life putting this game together, and you just immediately went to a negative. So, you know, people want to know that you're a person that is upbeat, is cheerful, can contribute and learn in equal parts. Somebody that's confident in their abilities, but is not willing to look at other ways to get things done. And that's something that's really important. So, you know, it's like I always say, don't suck. Okay. That's the big thing. Put yourself in the shoes of the person that you're talking to. All right. If you're going to go in there and be this really outlandish, like in your face kind of, oh, I'll be remembered. Yeah. You'll be remembered as the douchebag. You don't want that. You want to be remembered as the guy who was smart, polite. You know, people are trying to decide for themselves, is this somebody that I could sit next to for 10 hours a day? All right. So conduct yourself accordingly. Yeah. Now, let me add one other thing, because we had something that was coming in online. And Ganesh was asking about whether or not the fact that he doesn't drink was going to prohibit him from doing networking. And a couple of things that I would comment on that. First off, absolutely not, man. I don't drink either. And that doesn't mean that, yeah, Grant doesn't drink. That doesn't mean that you can't be at the bars and stuff like that. If somebody offers to buy you a drink, just tell them, you know, no, thank you. I'm good right now, or I've already had enough. Or if you're worried about that, just make sure you have a water or a Coke or something in your hands at all time. And then there's no need for anybody to offer because you've already got one. So, you know, there's a lot. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Again, they're not going to be like, who is this guy? He doesn't drink. And if they take that attitude, you probably don't want to hang out with them anyway, you know?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I was thinking about it, and I've never heard someone say on Thursday or Friday of GDC, man, I wish I had gotten more drunk last night. Like, but yeah, I mean, I haven't
very much. Probably a lot more people are going like, never again, never again.
Yeah, so I've actually never drank at GDC, partially medical and partially, you know, on my own choice. And I always feel way better than everybody that does drink. And I've never had people, other than I'm like, no, I don't drink, or no thanks, I'm good. No one ever really questions it. They're just going to belly up to the bar on their own. So Trev Swaff asked, going to be my first GDC this year, but I'll be in school until next year. How do I position myself when my goal is to meet people so I could get a AAA job, but not until next year?
Same way, man. Same thing we've been talking about, Trevor, and thanks for being here, man. I'm glad you made it. You want to just make friends. You're in a much better space being at GDC this year and not needing a job. The pressure is off. When you start talking to people and they realize that you're not looking for a job immediately, they're going to automatically feel kind of like, oh, okay, cool. You know, you're not going to have, let me put it this way. You're going to have an opportunity to make a lot of contacts with people and to start building some friendships, which you can nurture over the next year. So by the time you are ready to find that job, you're already going to have a bunch of friends out there in the industry. So your job is just to make friends, man, network with them. You still want to present yourself in the exact same way. And I know you, dude, you're already making games. You've got like an incredible internship here that you're working on, and you're doing some really cool things that you can talk about. So you don't want to take the attitude that you're a student, even though you are. You're a game developer, my brother. That's the badge and the flag that you want to fly right there. You just happen to be in school, but you're already perfecting your craft. So you're there to learn and to make friends and to network with like-minded game developers. And when you come home that Friday or Saturday and you have a pocket full of 50 new business cards, make sure that you connect with those people on LinkedIn and send them a personal note that says, you know, hey, I met you at your booth, or I met you at the, you know, Epic party, or whatever it is, to remind them who you are. Find them on Twitter and start following them. And now you have an opportunity to kind of, you know, remind them who you are on a regular basis with your tweets and stuff like that. So I think you're in a great position by going there early, man. I really do.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the main thing is, if you're going to make business cards, don't put student on them. Just put what you do. You know, like, there's no reason to put student. You're already doing it. And when people ask, like, where do you work? You're like, oh, well, I'm studying this. That's fine. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could have gone a year before I graduated. I went a few months before I graduated, and it was huge for me. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You know what? I'm thinking back to my very first GDC that I went to, and keep in mind, you know, I spent 20 some years in the music business, right? And when I got my job at Full Sail, I thought probably I was going to somehow end up working with the music programs and everything, right? But I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And my boss asked me if I would be interested in becoming the advisor for game development. And I said, I know absolutely nothing about game development. And she said, that's okay. It's so much easier to teach somebody that than it is to teach somebody the professional aspects of getting a job, blah, blah, blah. So we want you to do this. So I said, okay, great. So that went down in January. March was GDC, and they're like, oh, Rob, we're sending you to GDC. And I remember sitting there at this conference, not knowing a thing about game development. I barely knew enough about the school that I was representing to really be able to talk intelligently about that. I have never been treated so well by people that I have never met before in my life as I was at that very first GDC. Not only the people that I traveled with from Full Sail, the course directors and whatnot, they were all really patient and answering questions and helping me to understand what was going on. But even a lot of the people that I just ran into, you know, I told them a little bit about Full Sail, and they told me a little bit about their company. And, you know, I just told them, you know, I just started at this job. I'm trying to learn all I can. So, you know, don't be afraid about going and talking to people and putting yourselves out there, man. It is such a friendly community of people that just love meeting and helping other people. The worst thing that you can do is not take advantage of having all these like-minded people in one area that you can go talk to and really, you know, connect with. It's just, your heart will pound with happiness and joy. I promise you.
It's true. It's true. So Chad Hoover, hey Chad, how's it going? Asked, what is the rule of thumb when it comes to follow up on connections during GDC? So Rob was talking about this a bit. I usually follow the following rules. I follow up the week after at some point. If I felt like we had a really good connection, I connect with somebody on Facebook. And I always send a personal message on Facebook or LinkedIn. So I'll connect with them on Facebook. If I felt like we just have more of kind of a professional interaction, then it's a LinkedIn thing. And then if I want to have like a conversation with them, I'll start with an email first. So that's kind of my rule of thumb. And I always remind them, here's how I met you. Here's who I am. Don't, you know, because you may not have a picture or something. Here's who I am. You know, we met in this area. We had this conversation about this. I try to always have a pen with me so I can write down little facts on the backs of people's business cards. My business cards actually have a blank space on the back that's like right here, so people can write information on the back of how they met me. So yeah, that's kind of my rule of thumb, is like within a week, so people remember you. I try not to do it like on the weekend, like that Monday, because they're going to come back to a ton of email. But so it's so fresh in their mind. Oh, Rob's showing his business card.
Oh, it's coming in a little blurry though.
Yeah,
there it is.
But yeah, that's really the main thing I find is within a week. And then I seriously, when I sit down, I bucket things. So I'm like, oh, this person I had a good interaction with, I'm going to try and find them on Facebook. This person is more of a LinkedIn. This person is email. And that's how I kind of do it. And I always send a message, a personalized message, because there's nothing like getting a LinkedIn message. It's just like, I want to be part of your network. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because I'm exactly the same way. When I get home, it's like, you know, usually I'm just collecting cards throughout. So when I get home, you know, that Monday or Tuesday, I start to sort them all out once I get caught up. And they're the ones like, you know, I would put in order of urgency, like, wow, I really need to make sure I get with these people and I need to do it quick because it was timely conversation or whatever. But yeah, don't be afraid to make some notes on the card itself if you need to kind of keep track of who's who and everything. You know, for me also, I get a lot of cards that are left at the booth, you know, for people that are looking for me and stuff like that, and they don't have any message on them. So, you know, sometimes I have to respond to them like, you know, I was given your card at GDC. How can I help you? Something like that. So, yeah, it's kind of good to, you know, keep track as best you can of who's who and what's what when you're, so that when you get home, you can kind of make your priority list and everything.
Yeah. So, nobody asked this, but I want to make sure we talk about it, which is, what if I'm introverted and now I have to go network with people? I don't like talking to people, but I know it's important for me to do it. What are some tips you might have, Rob? I have a couple thoughts, but what are some tips you might have for someone like that? I know you've talked to many people like that through the years.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people think that being introverted or that networking is only for the extroverted person, and it's just so not true. In fact, one of the things that I remember when I first did sales training many years ago, they asked the question of, and I'll ask you guys, get ready to type your answers before I give you the answer, but who do you think out there makes the best salesperson, the introvert or the extrovert? Cue the theme to Jeopardy, and I'll give you a second. We'll see if anybody types anything in. I know we're on a limited time frame here, but anyway, nobody. Okay. Grant Schonkweiler just came in. Extrovert. You word type. Good.
I don't know. Both?
Yeah. No, anyway, yeah, the answer is the introvert. Okay. Everybody thinks it's the extrovert, but put yourself in those shoes. Do you want to be the guy buying the snake oil off the wagon? Or do you want to be with the guy that listens to what that qualifies you and finds out what you want? I'm using, again, the Best Buy analogy of buying a new computer. I went in one time last time I bought my computer, and, when I went into Best Buy, I asked, the guy asked me what I was doing, and I'm like, I'm looking for a new laptop. And he's like, well, these are on sale. Okay, well, that's great, buddy. Thank you. See you later. Went down the street to the Office Depot, and the same thing. I'm looking at laptops, and the guy comes up to me and he's like, so what are you looking for in a laptop? Do you travel a lot? Do you store a lot of files? What exactly is important to you in a laptop? So he qualified me, and then once he got all my answers, he recommended 2 machines, and they were perfect recommendations. They met all the things that were important to me. I'm not going to buy a big gaming laptop that I won't use to game on, that I'm going to have to lug around everywhere. I needed portability, good battery, fast streaming. He was an introverted guy in the sense that he didn't feel the need to have to talk the whole time. He listened and responded accordingly. And if you're introverted, if you're so introverted to the point that you can't initiate a conversation, then that's trouble. You need to work on that. And maybe that's something that would need to be addressed on a more one-on-one basis than what we can do right now. But there's ways that you can get around that. You don't have to be Anthony Robbins with a big grill full of teeth and, going out there, ringing bells and blowing whistles and stuff. You just have to be a part of it. You got to show up. You got to be, not be afraid to offer a few ideas. It's all in how you present them. You can present an opinion without being opinionated. You can ask questions. Asking questions is a really great way to kind of get people to open up and talking about themselves. And the other thing is, once you do it a few times, you'll see that it's not that hard. That your fear is that, you're going to be like the reporter that's just drilling this person with questions. And the more you start talking to people, the more they're going to contribute to the conversation. They're going to start asking you questions too. And pretty soon you have a dialogue going. Yeah, it's funny. And here's the last thing I'll say on this, because I could go on all day. I was exactly like the person that asked this question when I was 18 years old. Okay. I always wanted to work in the music business, and I got an opportunity to go work in a record store right after high school. And I was really intimidated by a lot of the people I worked with because they knew so much about music. And I remember even like one of the first weeks that I worked there, somebody came in and asked for music by the classical composer Chopin. I took them to the classical section and went directly to the S's. And the first thing they said was, well, it's with a C. Okay, great. So then, backtrack over to the C, found it. I was so embarrassed. But you know what? This kind of stuff happens. I realized later on that a lot of these people that I was really intimidated by, um, there was really no reason to be intimidated by. And I really lacked the confidence that I was afraid to ask questions of people because I felt like in order for me to be accepted, I had to already know. And that was the real big, that was the biggest mistake I ever made, because I, to this day, think that people that ask questions, at least intelligent, good, thought-provoking questions, or that show that they're trying to learn and are willing to learn, those people, to me, are much smarter than the person that thinks he knows it all. So again, asking questions is not a bad thing, and it's a great way to get out there. Do a little homework first and think about, what do I really want to know about this company or this position? The only questions that you can't ask are the obvious. Things like, oh, Grant, you work at Epic. What games do you make? Where are you located? That kind of stuff you should know, or you should have done your homework to find out before the conference. But, Grant, what does a typical day at work look like for you as a producer? How many, what about the devs? What are there any languages or scripting languages that I could really study up on that would give me a leg up at being considered for a job with you guys? What is the hiring process like? There's so many things that you can ask, and people are going to be more than willing to help out and answer for you. Again, a lot of it is just in how you present yourself. So I feel for you, because I know a lot of people are like, no way, because I tend to be a very extroverted, almost to the point of in your face guy. And but I was exactly that same way. It took me a long time to build up the confidence and everything to be able to go out there. There's another great saying that people have, and if you've never heard this, this will be a good one for you to write down. Let's see. Let me see how I always get it messed up. You wouldn't worry about how much people talk about you behind your back if you realize just how little they actually did.
Yeah. That's really good. I think the last thing I would add for the introvert thing is it's important to schedule time to decompress. I do this as an extrovert. Schedule a little downtime. Go back to your hotel room, go sit in the park. I have this thing where I tend to go to the park right above the conference center, and if it's nice out, I'll just lay out in the sun for a while and just nap or zone out or whatever. It just is a time to decompress from just the crush of people. And if you're really introverted, that's important to kind of schedule that time.
That's a great tip. That's, you really need to take care of yourself. At the conference, you're going to be so busy. You're going to be walking a lot. Everywhere you go is a networking opportunity, whether you're in the lobby of your hotel, whether you're grabbing lunch somewhere around the conference center, walking around the streets of San Francisco. You're going to run into other game developers. The place is just lousy with game devs, for that entire week. So they're like, fleas in the tenderloin. So, you gotta be prepared for that. So, make sure that you're comfortable, and, all the usual things that your mom would tell you. Drink lots of water, eat sensible, don't drink too much, wear clean underwear, all of that kind of stuff.
And if you want more GDC tips, watch last month's stream. We talked all about those things.
There was some good stuff.
So Kyle asked, how long should I plan to wait for the career hall booths? Are those made specifically for recruiters to talk with potential employees? Yes, that's what they're there for. It depends. If you're completely fresh to the industry, you could wait 20, 30 minutes to go to a booth. I hear that the career booth this year is a little bit smaller than last year, so there's going to be less options for people, which means more people. If you go on Friday, which is student day, you'll be waiting even longer in line. So really focus on the companies you want to talk to first. Go to them first. Or if you walk by a booth and there's no one waiting in line at that booth, be like, okay, I guess I'll talk to them. Especially if you're just trying to break in. A gig is a gig, right? You're not necessarily going to go get a job at Blizzard directly out of school, but you might get a job at, Blue Teal Game. I don't know. I just made that up. That happens to be there.
Love that company, man.
I know they make that great game, that one game.
My adorable pony with the blue teal tail or something. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. So that,
the other thing about that too, be willing to talk to a gig is a gig is a gig, but be realistic in what you're going after. But at the same time, we recruiters know each other. We talk to each other. I got a call today from a recruiter here in Orlando that was looking for 3D modelers with experience. And he's like, I know you know a lot of people, here's a little carrot for you to help me out, and try and find some people. And it's like, yeah, man, I'm already talking to people. I can ask one more question. So, you make good friends with one, and they might not have a home for you, but they might know of somebody that does. So,
yeah, I've actually seen that happen at GDC.
Yeah, me too.
I actually walked somebody. I was talking to a recruiter, just as a friend, was checking in with a recruiter, introduced him to a friend of mine, and he said, I don't have that job, but so-and-so over at Insomniac has that job. And I said, okay. And I took my friend and I walked over and I said, so-and-so sent me from this company and said that I should talk to you to introduce you to my friend who's looking for this job. And they were like, oh, hey, perfect. And they hit it off. He interviewed. I don't think he got the job or took the job, whatever. But, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So let's blow through. JD had a couple questions we didn't get to. He said, Robbie had talked to you a bit on Twitter earlier this week. Hypothetically, if you are seeking a job at a company and you could find out the recruiter's name online, is it socially acceptable to reach out to them out of the blue to say that you have applied for job X and we're hoping to have them look things over? Or is that too aggressive in terms of networking? Note that you've never met this person before or talked to them.
So I kind of didn't understand this question, I think, when JD and I were talking about it a little bit. So can you read the question one more time, Grant?
Yeah. So basically, you applied for a job somewhere. You've never met the recruiter, but you do some research online and you find out the recruiter's name. And then on Twitter or Facebook, LinkedIn, you reach out to them and you're like, hey, I applied for this job. I haven't heard back.
Yeah. So, I would, I think in the context of what you asked me on Twitter was, would it be okay just to say hello to them? And that's what kind of threw me, because it's kind of like, no, I wouldn't just say hello. I would have something to say if I were to contact them. Me personally, I would not be shy if I found somebody about hitting them on LinkedIn with a message that, a quick intro of myself and letting them know that I had some questions that I was hoping to get answered. Would they mind taking a few minutes to chat with me or something in the next week? Some people don't feel comfortable doing that. There might be some recruiters and stuff out there that would be put off by that, but shame on them. I'm a recruiter. If somebody comes to me, that's making my job a lot easier. Now, if this person is totally unqualified for the job that they're asking about, then I probably am not going to have a lot of time to spend with them. But me personally, I will always respond to people. Some recruiters, maybe not. If they're interested, they're going to respond to you. If they're not, they probably won't. So what have you got to lose, right? Just so long as, you conduct yourself in a professional manner and you send that message to them. If they don't respond, don't keep bugging them. Move on. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have any trouble if somebody You know, hey, I found you online. I'm interested in finding out more about opportunities at Every. Would you have some time to talk? Absolutely. That's my job. I'd love to talk to you, you know?
Yeah. I would say LinkedIn, yes. Facebook, Twitter, no.
Yeah.
Twitter's not the place to have that type of conversation. Facebook is creepy. But LinkedIn is the place for that conversation. Most recruiters do a lot of work through there. So the way to approach that situation, to answer your follow-up question without it being potentially weird, is to do it through LinkedIn and have questions and be like, hey, I just wanted to chat about this stuff. I submitted a resume, but I found you as a recruiter or an HR person. I wouldn't do it to like a random dev or something like that. I would, if I was a random dev, I would feel off put by that, but a recruiter or maybe a hiring manager, that's fine. Again, LinkedIn, not Twitter, not Facebook, definitely not Facebook. If you did it on Facebook, I would make sure you didn't get a job because that's super creepy. It's like, you found me. Ooh, it's a little weird. So, all right. So this is the last question we have. JD.
Oh, I don't want. I'm having too much fun.
JD asked this question, so we'll answer this question and then give our final remarks. What is the weirdest story you can think of in terms of meeting someone that now you couldn't imagine not knowing that person professionally speaking?
Do I get to go first?
Yeah.
All right. This is going to sound really cheesy. Okay, but I'm going to say it anyway. And I would have to say my good friend Grant Schonk right here. Because, you know, I know it's like my heart is beating so fast right now. I do believe I have the vapors. No, you know what? There's quite a few folks that I've had the opportunity to work with while I was at Full Sail that, you know, first came to my attention because they were students. But what made them stand out above everybody else was a lot of the way in which they carried themselves. They did a lot of the things that we've been talking about here more than anything. So, you know, suiting up and showing up are the two really big things. And, you know, if I were to cite Grant, or, you know, there's a number of other students that I could mention, some of whom are out there right now on this conversation, listening to this video and chiming in, they showed up. So, you know, I might not have known them by first name, you know, until maybe the fourth or fifth encounter that we had. But, you know, much like a bad rash, they just wouldn't go away. And that was good. They weren't invasive. They weren't constantly like, you know, brown nosing or, you know, lobbying for attention, but they just kept showing up and they kept doing what they needed to do. And when you'd ask them about something, they were really pleasant. So when I look back at, you know, the years I spent at Full Sail recommending people to the industry, I would always tell these, you know, these recruiters and hiring managers I was dealing with that, you know, I can't speak so much for their technical abilities other than to tell you they had this as a GPA, which isn't always a good indicator. But I can tell you this, they're the type of person you want in your studio because they're friendly, they're polite, they mean well, they listen well, and they show up. They're passionate. So, you know, those are the people that I'm really glad, you know, to have had the opportunity to get to know. And, you know, and then like I said with Grant, you know, you see somebody leave, and I think, Grant, you were what, like 19 when you graduated or something?
Yeah.
So, you know, here was this young guy who has now gone out and, you know, 8-9 years later is doing some amazing things in the industry. And probably the thing, you know, that I think is the greatest, if you take away the games that he's made and the stuff like that, the thing that I measure it on is what he's given back to the industry and what he's given back to the people at Full Sail and other people at other schools as well. And, you know, you want to know why he knows so many people? Well, that's it right there, because he's constantly giving back to the community. So whether he likes it or not, people know who he is because he's being benevolent. So, but there's, I've said it a million times. I think the game industry is the most benevolent society of people that I've ever worked with. And I hope that I will end my career whenever that happens in the gaming world, because I just love this space.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, that was incredible. Now you guys see why I invited Rob on here. You know, I do think that's really true. Some of the people that I am closest with are because of their giving back to other people. You know, there are people that are friends with Rob and I that I met when I was a student because they came back to talk. I think the weirdest. So I've met game devs in some weird places. I've met game devs in other countries just on vacation. I met a game dev walking across a bridge once, and we started talking about, like, I think I was whistling like a video game tune, and we're friends now. And I actually like wrote a song for him. Like, I've met game devs in some weird places. I met him at raves. I met him just random places. But I think probably the weirdest and the people that I'm closest with was my first GDC. I was a student. I stayed with a friend out at San Francisco State on Saturday night, and then Sunday I took Mooney, or maybe it was Bart, I don't remember. I took public transit in, and I was with my good friend Matt Brenner, and we weren't really sure where to go once we got off the BART, and we saw these three people, and we were like, man, they look kind of like young game devs. And so we like followed them, and they realized we were following them, and they turned around and they're like, are you guys following us? And we're like, yeah. Are you guys going to GDC? Are you volunteers? And they're like, yeah. And we started talking, got to know each other. 9 years later, we were all very good friends. I kick off every GDC with hanging out with two of them, and the other two, I stay at their house on Saturday after GDC. And then I've done this for 8 years now. And I just met them getting off of the BART in downtown San Francisco, and we had just a very random conversation. And they're close friends of mine, all four of them. And you never know. You never know who you're going to meet, where you're going to meet them. You know, like I said, I've literally met people on airplanes on a trip that had nothing to do with video games that have some involvement or a relative involved in video games that we then connected and got to be friends. And so really it's just make friends with everybody you can. You never know what's going to happen. So, I mean, that's my final advice. Just make friends. That's the easiest thing to say. Go out there, meet people, make friends. Rob, you got anything else?
Well, it was just funny while you were talking about that, stalking the guys from the bus stop and everything. I was thinking back to a couple of GDCs ago. I like to travel early. So like even this year, I think my flight leaves Friday morning from San Francisco at like 6 a.m. And
crazy.
I know, and most people think I'm insane, but I just the good thing about traveling early is that the plane's always there, but yeah. Anyway, I remember getting to the airport like really, really early, 3 days of just pounding the pavement at San Francisco. My voice is shot. I'm so tired, and the nerdiest of nerds is on the plane and recognizes a piece of swag that I had or something and wanted to talk about GDC like incessantly and nonstop for the next hour as we waited to board the plane. And I'm thinking to myself, just shut up, please.
Yeah.
Shut up. Again, you were talking earlier, you got to learn when to walk away and everything. And I mean, the body language I was sending this guy was like that scene from Airplane, where the lady's dousing herself with gasoline and everything. And he's like, but he just didn't get it. So, and then I think, he pushed a card at me or something, at the end too. I don't think that card even made it on the plane, but, anyway, no, I don't really have too much else to add. There's some good questions tonight, and, keep doing this, Grant. I think it's awesome that, you're doing this on a monthly basis. You've had some good guests on here. There's a lot of smart people in this industry, and I'm just thankful to be a part of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing you next week out in San Francisco. And for the rest of you guys that are out there, make sure you find me if you can. I'll be on the floor Wednesday and Thursday, pretty much all day at the expo, just kind of hanging out. And if you're looking for me, you can tweet at me. At Rob Coble is usually the easiest way to find me. And have a great show, y'all. I'm looking forward to seeing y'all there.
Cool. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Rob, for the great advice. I will also be at GDC. The best way to find me is hopefully
look for the rugby jersey.
Look for the rugby jersey. I'll be volunteering, so I'll be wearing a bright blue shirt, and I'll have my beard. And I'm also speaking at 11:30 on Thursday. So if you have a pass, feel free to come and listen to me ramble about game development.
Hey, can you sneak me into that, man?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention earlier. So.
You missed that. So yeah, thank you all. And I'll be announcing probably after GDC what the plans are for next month. Thanks. Bye.
Awesome. See you later, brother.